Welcome to So Many Receipts. I'm Shelley Seddon.
And I'm Fleur Michelle.
And we're two entertainment journos based in Sydney, Australia, who love to analyse and talk about all things reality TV and pop culture.
In Deep Dive, we go all in on stuff we're dying to know about, plus chats you won't want to miss. Hello, everyone. Fleur here. We are still on a break with our Receipt Roundup weekly show, but we will be back next Friday and every week with a stack of reality TV shows and documentaries we can't wait to get stuck into. But today, have a listen to the first episode in our new Deep Dive True Crime series. We will be popping up episodes whenever we get the chance. Today in Deep Dive True Crime, we're getting into the case that stopped Australia in its tracks, Erin Patterson, the mushroom murderer. We've already covered several documentaries on this in our Receipt Roundup show, and today I am talking to author Duncan McNab, who's written a new book on the case called Recipe for Murder. It's out this week through Hachette, Australia. Duncan is an investigative journalist, TV producer, and also a former police detective in Private Eye. I have so many questions about Erin, her husband, her life in jail. So, Duncan, welcome to So Many Receipts.
Thanks for the invitation to come on.
Oh, no worries. So, Duncan, you actually attended Erin Patterson's nine-week trial in Morwell, Victoria, and you set out the trial in such fantastic detail in the book. What was it actually like to be there? Was it chaotic, surreal, grueling, all of the above?
All of the above is pretty good. I wasn't there the full 9 week or the full 9 weeks. I came down sporadically. There were TV crews everywhere. There were journalists everywhere. There were print journalists. There were TV journalists. There are podcasters, all that sort of stuff, plus photographers as well, all milling around. So, I don't think 40 or 50 people would be unsurprising.
So, Erin Patterson, firstly, what did you make of Erin's psyche? Do you think she's some kind of psychopath?
No, I lean towards my old mate Tim Watson-Munro, the criminal psychologist, who continually says to me, and I'm glad he does, that some people are not mad, they're just bad. And some people are, they've obviously got serious mental health issues. They also know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And some people just view something as brutal as murdering somebody as an inconvenience. There was no mental health evidence given at all during the trial.
Mm-hmm.
It was extremely well represented. So if mental health was going to be an issue, and her capacity to give evidence, and that would have come up very, very early. So everyone was satisfied that Erin knew precisely what she was doing.
So I was surprised to read in your book that it was not necessary for the prosecution to prove motive, come up with a motive. Did that surprise you or not?
No, it's commonplace in criminal trials. You need to prove a lot of things beyond reasonable doubt, but motive isn't one of them. And we'll never know because she's certainly not going to tell us. As lay people coming to it, we think there's some sort of why are people driven to do this?
Mm.
And as I talked about a couple of minutes back, some people in this life aren't driven to do it all. So there's no great driving. There's no sort of catalyst. One of the many bizarre things about Erin Patterson's case, the day before the fatal lunch, her husband rings her, the estranged husband Simon, and says, "I'm not coming." So you would think if you're of the view that, as many people were thinking, well, she wanted to kill the husband, then why the hell did she do what she did the next day when she knew he wasn't coming?
Mm.
That's why motive is not maybe a driver of some crimes, but it's not a legal requirement.
Yeah, because everybody obviously does want to know why she did it.
Absolutely.
Why did she kill all those in-laws? Do you have a theory?
I thought the driver of any potential murder plot was obviously her estranged husband and their deteriorated relationship. There's that bizarre story which you only learned about after the trial of his various illnesses, which again we heard about that last year, but it wasn't part of the court. I just think she decided, well, I've planned to do them all in or make them very sick on this particular day. I'm just going to bat on with it. And I suppose she could justify it in part in her head that the Wilkinsons, for example, the sort of slightly more distant in-laws, they were part of the lure to get the Patterson family in. Let's all go for this great family reunion. She was narky with Don and Gail Patterson online to her Facebook friends, going back to the year beforehand where there'd been a disagreement with Simon over a tax return. and money finally came into the argument. She was very, very shitty, to put it politely, with Don and Gail Patterson for not giving her the support she wanted and instead not supporting, but not not taking her side against their own son. Um, and there's no other reason for it I can think of. So she's got upset with him. She's put a course of action in play and she's gone for it. And I also thought that she'd planned it quite well, but she didn't plan not getting away with it. She didn't
Mm.
plan any court like so many crooks. They're meticulous in what they do up to the point of the murder, but they actually don't plan for cops coming knocking or people like us, people around the world thinking, this is really weird.
Mm.
How can four people be in hospital in dire straits, yet the fifth person at the table is walking around okay? How does that happen?
Mm.
I don't
Mm.
think I planned that. So
Does it, I mean, the Munchausen theory might hold some weight. Like maybe she didn't mean to actually kill them and just make them sick, and then she would come to their rescue. I mean, it's
yeah.
pretty dangerous considering they were death cap mushrooms. But
Yeah.
what do you think of that?
I thought one of the theories, one potential defense was for her was say, well, I didn't want to kill them. I just wanted to make them sick.
Mm.
I wasn't getting enough attention. I wanted to be more involved in their lives. And it's possible. It's one theory that may have a bit of credit. And I take that back to when Simon was dreadfully ill. He had four bouts of serious illness.
Mm.
One was particularly almost deadly. And that's when he's raced it. He and Erin, to put it shortly, would go away on weekends, camping trips together, reconciliation, potential, blah, 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 love camping. Erin would do the catering. On one trip, they went away. Simon became so unwell that he ended up in hospital having major life-saving surgery. Quirky thing about this is the next of kin who had to sign off for the surgery was Erin.
Hmm.
Simon recovers, dreadful illness. He goes into rehab for a while. Then Erin takes him back to her new house in Gibson Street, Leongatha, where the murders happened. And she becomes his nurse and she supports him throughout this entire thing. Um, and then at one point, Simon remembered this in his evidence, that she got really annoyed with him. And he noted, I think he referred to it as a cold shoulder. Um, and around about this time, he's sitting down having lunch together. She's made him a special stew, and 8 hours later, he's crook again.
Mm.
So yeah, and that may be where some fertile minds have decided to throw Munchausen's in just to see if into the mix. Look, her defense might have been, I didn't mean to kill them. I had the shits with them. I just
Mm.
wanted to know that I was angry with them, and I chose this bizarre method, or I wanted to cause a bit of, I wanted them to feel some of the pain I'd felt,
Yes. Yep.
but I didn't mean to kill them. Well, it's a theory. I wouldn't have liked to have defended her on that basis because I think it'd be a very fast trip to guilty.
Yeah.
But I can understand that may have been part of her plotting. But the amount of mushrooms and the lethality of what she delivered to them, and the fact that she was not unwell afterwards
Mm.
suggests that she was. The bottom line is that she was going to kill him.
What about the theory, Duncan, that because she was a true crime junkie, she was in all these true crime forums, deliberating on motives of why other murderers had done things, etc. Could she have maybe formed a sort of thought, oh, I need a sick break from reality. I'd like to know what it's like to murder somebody myself and see if I can get away with it.
I had a similar thought, and I've written about it as well. And just in the back of my mind is Erin, like the person who joins a fire brigade who's an arsonist.
Mm.
What had she cast herself into her own true crime story? Because she was completely obsessed with it. She's obsessed by true crime podcasts. She had apparently over 400 books. Yeah, and I think maybe she's been thinking her way through it. Well, and this is how I can plan it. I've seen what these people do. She is ultra bright,
Mm.
and maybe it's assisted her enormously in her planning what she's chosen as the murder weapon, and how to do it at all. But for someone who's that bright and that meticulous, her planning was pretty crappy, to put it mildly, and she didn't plan an exit. Um, and it was remarkable that she was unaware of what could be found in her search histories, where her phone tower would resonate when it drives to a certain area. Not that that evidence it was given, but wasn't. The judge said, well, she might have been driving past but that phone tower, but it's a big leap to say she stopped at that phone tower and then went off to pick mushrooms nearby. No evidence to prove that. So she wasn't careful with her search histories. She was utterly unaware of a couple of days later when she threw the dehydrator in at the local tip that she'd paid for the tip visit on her credit card. Police
Mm.
had that. And that they also got CCTV of it. So I think she planned meticulously, but the one thing she hadn't thought about was that she would be caught.
Maybe
And
that's where maybe some of her narcissism came into it, because it
yeah,
has been floated that she might have been, well, she seems pretty narcissistic, pretty
oh yeah,
self-absorbed. I never understand like how someone so into true crime could leave so many clues.
Erin's assumption was that no one would outsmart her. No one would know this was anything else other than a horrible accident. I'm home free. So no one's going to ask
Mm.
questions. What she didn't realize is that literally within a couple of days, people who've experienced coppers particularly, and I think most people are thinking, this is really weird. Four people in hospital, one person not. How does that work? The doctors are also raising their eyebrows. We've got that, I think Dr. Chris Webster gave that remarkable comments after the case when he could speak more freely, saying the moment she said to him that she got the mushrooms from Woolworths, he said, Eureka, she killed them.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that as well.
Yeah, and there's another doctor who examined Erin in hospital. I think in the was it Monash? I may have that wrong. Anyway, she examined her, and she examines Erin, and she finds out she is normal. The other four, dire straits. Erin, perfectly normal. How does that work?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I get it's arrogance, narcissism, poor planning on her part as well. I don't think she ever assumed that someone would think anything other than the story she pitched out the door, which was it was all a terrible, terrible accident. And she stuck with that from day one through to conviction.
She did. And I mean, I guess I came to my own armchair detective conclusion
Yep.
that basically she wanted to get rid of Simon because she was sick of their inability to parent the kids together. They'd had all those financial disagreements, and she wanted the in-laws gone as well because she maybe felt they were too in his ear and too much of an influence on him. And then when he didn't turn up to the lunch, she decided to just go ahead and kill them anyway to remove that. To remove that influence, basically, and maybe also to take something away from him that he loved in order to hurt him.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's perfectly reasonable. She made a comment to Simon the night before when he was saying, I can't come. She said, but I've spent so much money on the beef fillet.
mm,
Oh, God, I've spent this much money. I prepared the beef Wellington. Just bugger it, I'll just press on.
yeah,
It's that utter indifference to human life that scares me about Erin Patterson. And you don't meet people like this that often, fortunately. But the cold-blooded manner of what she did is just
mm,
like I can't come to grips with it. I can't see how she'd be sitting at the table with four people she purported to love or care about enormously.
mm.
Mouthful by mouthful, she was committing them to a terrible, terrible fate.
So let's discuss Erin's husband, Simon Patterson. What kind of a man was Simon personality wise?
No one's actually got to interview him, so we're only relying on what we see in the witness box. Um, look, he's an average bloke. He's a civil engineer. He's obviously very bright,
Mhm.
well respected in the community.
Well, I think this point that he was bright had a lot of people stumped because as we discussed, she did try to poison him 4 times over 10 months
Yeah.
to the point that he kept that spreadsheet of every time he met up with her for a meal. And he even told his dad, Don, that he thought Erin was trying to poison him.
Hmm.
So why did he never raise the alarm about her, do you think?
I think there are probably a couple of reasons. First up, I think he was still very much in love with her and he always wanted to reconcile. And he made a point in his evidence, I think it was a trial, that it was not him leaving her, it was always her leaving him.
Hmm.
So there's a bloke who wanted to keep the family unit together with the two kids. Um, he wanted to keep that together. I think that may not have blinded him, but I would imagine it makes it even harder to step across that line. It says, is in fact someone I've loved and got kids with trying to actually kill me?
Mm.
And I think that was making that step for him was something he did very slowly, and it was, I think, a huge effort, to be honest. And one of the other issues too, which has complicated the original charges, whereas that there is absolutely zero medical evidence to support poisoning. Not to say there wasn't poisoning either, but there's
Mm.
nothing you could take to court.
Yeah, so I did a TikTok for the So Many Receipts page that got a lot of reaction wondering why Simon would therefore allow his in-laws, his parents and his aunt and uncle, to go to lunch with her. So even though he suspected she might be poisoning him, allegedly, because if that was me, I'd be nervous to let relatives around her if I thought she was going to put maybe
I,
poison me. Why do you think he was okay for them to go to the lunch?
I agree entirely. But I think a couple of things. Given the antecedents, he thought that he was the target, and
Mm,
as be there, it'll be all hunky dory. Um, he hadn't dined at Erin's since the last poisoning, which is or the last alleged poisoning. So there'd been about a 9 month break, and maybe things had diluted. He'd got his affairs in order. Things had calmed
mm,
slightly. And the other thing that might also, I think, weighed on his mind was that his parents, Don and Gail, had been to Erin's for lunch in the end of June, 23rd of June, he said off the top of his head. And they'd all had a great lunch. And Erin's story, which, and again, Erin's the only one left to tell the story,
mm,
apart from Ian Wilkinson, who was at that stage in dire straits. Erin's story was that Don and Gail had had a great time. The kids had been there as well. They'd had a shepherd's pie. And the only reason I mention that is Erin's story was then, I'll invite them all back. They had such a great time. Let's bring Heather and Ian along as well because they would love my garden. And I'll cook them a special meal because shepherd's pie wasn't special enough. And I think that may have also softened the suspicions as well because Don and Gail had had a good time. They'd spent time with their grandkids. Simon hadn't been there, but everyone seemed very happy with the event. And from an outsider's view, it seems that Erin's relationship with Don and Gail was getting a little closer again. They were talking about her illnesses that she was going off to see the doctor at one stage,
mm.
that interim period, about a lump on her arm, which later turned out to be the catalyst for her then saying to them, there might be a cancer diagnosis. I don't know how a lump on your arm becomes a cancer diagnosis, frankly, but there you go. Yeah, it was a leap of faith required there. But I just think they'd become more comfortable with the notion of going to Erin's.
But
Um,
then remind us why he chose not to again.
I think Simon remained extremely cautious that he was a target of Erin's dislike and that she'd have another crack at him. And he had, I
But he
don't,
relaxed his views on the other relatives.
yeah, well, he thought he was a target.
Yeah. So, Duncan, another comment
Hmm.
somebody made in that same TikTok thread got a lot of response, which was something I hadn't thought of before, that perhaps Simon himself needed a closer look because this poster pointed out that now Simon not only has the kids, he now has the money and the assets from Erin and his parents. Did you ever have any suspicions about Simon or did anyone else?
No, and I actually think that suggestion is quite appalling. There's not one skerrick of evidence to even hint at that. Criminal investigation is a lot more. It's got to be bloody accurate. You've got to
Of
have
course.
evidence takes you along those steps. Yeah, some people online have some wild theories, and I just look at them and think, oh, maybe you just might want to keep that one to yourself.
So another TikTok I did on our site, actually the one that got the most response, over 110,000 views, was
Why?
what Erin's life is like currently in jail. And at the time, there were reports that she was basically crocheting around the clock in jail. She likes to crochet, and she crocheted a rat figurine for one of her lawyers as a gift because she is in solitary. We're
Hmm.
reading up to 22 hours a day, and there has been recent articles saying she's going to remain in solitary for some time to come. People were really interested to know what her life in solitary actually will be like. Can you explain a bit more about it for us?
Yeah, she's in maximum security in a sequestered area in the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre, which is a
Hmm.
rough prison. All prisons are rough, but I think Phyllis Frost has a interesting. It's a female-only prison, I think.
Hmm.
She's in a cell which is, I think, a mate of mine described about the same size as your bathroom,
Hmm.
bed, a TV. She's got access. She's got a computer, but that doesn't have Wi-Fi, so she can't. It's for her court cases, so she a storage. Yeah. She has crochet needles and wool. And she's also crocheted. We found out she crocheted a bedspread for herself to add a little
Hmm.
humanity to it. And also in her cell, she has hair straightener.
So, just on these points, number one, some people wondered why she would be given access to crochet needles. Could it be used as a weapon, and wool when it can be used to harm yourself?
Yeah, I think she's really, really closely monitored.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think they're extremely careful about these sorts of things. And the same argument also goes for why would we be allowed to have a pen or a pencil? Because
Mm-hmm.
something. I think that it's incredibly well monitored. They keep a very close watch on her, and she's got to do something. Mm. That would be the most. If she couldn't do that, the most idle of hands. She has library access, but the reason she's in solitary is not because she's a danger to other prisoners. It's because other prisoners are a danger to her.
Mm-hmm.
So she has to. If she wants to go to the library, for example, that's very restricted. She's got to be taken to the library at a time when she's the only person there aside from prison officers. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
she is, they, and the evidence it was at court that she's in her cell for about 22 hours a day, primarily because they don't have the staff to let her out any other time. She couldn't be allowed out into the exercise yard, for example, unless she was the only one there. She has access apparently to one other prisoner, and this wasn't because she chose the prisoner. It's because the prison officers decided that she needed to be able to talk to somebody who,
Mm-hmm.
oddly enough, is the person in the cell beside her, as I understand. And these cells, apart from being the size of a bathroom, which got toiletry and all that sort of jazz in them, they have a small courtyard which is fenced in by uh, wire mesh. So they can go out there. She can chat to the person beside her should they choose to. Now, this prisoner is actually a genuine terrorist. He's in prison for terrorism offences, and she's going to be in prison for a lot longer because I think she either murdered or attempted to murder another prisoner at one point. So
Okay.
strange bedfellows, interesting,
Mm-hmm.
someone to chat to, I would suggest. So she's sequestered in that little cell. Her meals, water, and medication are passed into her through a flap. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that's probably the only human contact you'll get in the course of most days is a prison officer sliding a tray through. Um, I don't know about access to visits. She would have some legal visit access. Again, if it's physical, it would need to be very controlled. So she and the lawyers and the prison officers are the only person in the visitor centre.
Mm-hmm.
They have audio visual for a lot of these. One byproduct of the pandemic is you can now visit people online in prison through specially set up areas, which takes some of the sting away. So I would imagine a lot of her legal visits are on that. She's only got one person who I believe has seen her a few times, and that's the person who decided to support her through the trial and just bringing basic things like change of clothes. She's also Erin's power of attorney. She's copped a lot of flack, but there's also a basic humanity in doing what she's doing as well. Erin's committed the most appalling crime I can lay my hands on.
Mm.
There is someone out there who's just felt that there is a basic humanity to be undertaken. So there'd be
Mm.
fresh clothes and a few other little knickknacks on the way through, maybe out buying hair straightener. I don't know.
So just on this point of the hair straightener, in this reel that I did, a lot of people said, "Oh, you must have got that wrong. There's no way that prisoners would be allowed a hair straightener. It's an electrical device. You could do harm with it. You need to plug it in." And I said, "Well, maybe she had it to straighten her hair for court. I'm not sure why she had it." So would you are allowed hair straighteners?
Yeah, I'm not good on hair products, as you
You're allowed to have stuff like that?
Oh yeah. To a certain limit. For example, I remember there's a case I looked at years ago where old blokes out at Long Bay in the geriatric unit had access to sandwich toasters.
Okay. Okay.
Fortunately, the sandwich toaster became a murder weapon, which
Hmm.
was my interest. Yeah, yeah. Look, you have power outlets there, but again, they're really closely supervised, and I think it's the sort of thing that you couldn't do too much harm. I don't know whether you could do anything deadly to yourself with a hair straightener.
Yeah,
Uh,
I guess you could burn yourself, but I don't know. Anyway, I was right on that point. I think that's
well,
it was
well,
widely reported she got a hair straightener. I don't think they got that wrong.
Now, it was in evidence, as I recall, from the Assistant Commissioner for Corrective Services, who
Okay.
described Erin's life in prison and told us why she would be spending so much time there.
Yep.
Uh, there's one point that I suppose fascinates people too. The judge, and this is one of the points of appeal by the Crown, that the judge was of the view and stated in his judgment, as I recall, that Erin could look forward to having many, 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 many years in exactly the same circumstances. But there are other high-profile female prisoners in the Australian prison system who are doing life. in behind bars, and they've actually assimilated quite well into the prison population.
So she presumably has a few hours out per day because it said up to 22 hours a day in solitary. What do you do for the other 2 hours typically?
A bit hit and miss for her in prison because they have staffing issues, so it's problematic. Look, get out and about, go out into her courtyard, enjoy a bit of natural light.
But
She's not
she's alone when she's let out.
absolutely.
Mm.
They've got apparently, I haven't been to the prison, but they've got a courtyard attached to your cell, so they open the door for you. There are exercise yards and that sort of thing where she can possibly do some exercise, but again, it has to be at a time that she can be properly guarded by the prison officers and that there is no one else in using that facility at the time. So, access to an exercise bike, which I believe they have in prison, she can only get when there's no one else around.
Okay.
So, and again, when you go into prison, the thing that always strikes me about prisons is the incredible regimentation. It's every door opening is choreographed. And
Mm.
in the case of it, where she is in this particularly highly protected area, it's even more fervent. So yeah, look on a good day, she might get to the library for 20 minutes to grab a few books. She might get to do half a K on the exercise bike nearby, but on a bad day when they don't have staff, she'll be in the cell pretty much all of it. It's yeah, it's a hard, brutal existence, but she
Yeah,
put it there.
of course. Do you think that it's necessary for her to be in solitary? Do you think she is at risk from other prisoners?
At this point, absolutely. That may
Okay.
change. And she was in and out of some of these highly protected areas on her remand period, and there are obviously issues throughout. So the corrective services assessment is that she needs to be looked after for quite some time to come. Now, again, I can't guess either, but I would
Mm.
imagine the years they'll keep reassessing that position to see whether or not there's an opportunity for her to socialise more with certain other prisoners at certain times. It's just ongoing assessment of it's risk assessment throughout the entire sentencing procedure. Um, but yeah, I think she's going to be in that very sequestered area for quite some time until the officers are reasonably comfortable that for her safety she can be allowed out. But prisons are also incredibly volatile places. So
And I hear your book has already been optioned by one of Australia's leading production companies, Beyond, for a major TV series. Can you tell us anything about that?
yeah, it's slow start. Tony Kavanagh, who's runs Beyond, approached, God, 6 or 8 months ago, optioned, which is great. Now we've got the hard business of trying to get other production to come on board, which in Australian TV at the moment, gone are the old days where you go to lunch, scribble a deal on the back of a coaster or on your
Oh,
serving.
is that how it worked?
Those days are long gone.
Hmm.
I did a series at Nine some years ago, which we pretty much nailed over at lunch and a few chats. That's how it used to work.
Right.
These days, funding is complicated. It will need offshore involvement and so on
Mm.
and so on. So, but hopefully it will see, and that's an option for a doco and a drama series. And I think both work quite well. There's a doco already in the marketplace, but we're approaching it very, very differently.
Okay.
Different.
So with when you are retelling a crime story for either a doco or a drama retelling, there is a tendency sometimes to paint a narrative in a certain way, isn't there?
Yeah, for dramas, not something I have a great degree of experience with. I've only tried one once and I didn't enjoy it. This one would be much nicer because I'm dealing with producers I like.
Mm.
Uh, a documentary, I always thought you try and keep, it can creep into it, but I think when writing or making documentaries, you don't try to judge or push a line. That's what the audience is there for. I like to give them a fairly clear view, a balanced view of what's happened. Yeah, take them to some places that we found that are a bit murky as well, because what you see in court is a very different kettle of fish to what happens before you get to court. One of the great problems with any investigation is confirmation bias, where you sort of start up with that's the result and let's work
Mm.
to it. Disaster happens in criminal investigation, happens in journalists as well. In
Mm.
journalism, sorry. So I like to take people, walk them through the story. Which piece of the jigsaw puzzle goes where? Why do you reckon that? How did that happen? And work our way through it. And I find that far more intriguing than taking a line and pushing it. So many bits that are fascinating that maybe even just small. And one of the curiosities in Erin's case, an avalanche of people ringing me, all telling me that her white trouser choice, because black saying, she's wearing white trousers, who cares? mates are saying, no, no, why would you, if you had diarrhea, why would you be wearing white trousers?
Hmm. Obviously, she didn't have diarrhea.
Didn't have diarrhea. And I'm thinking, that's a bloody good point, typical, thick-headed male. I wouldn't have noticed that. If you're getting 110 people on 110,000 people on TikTok engaging with you on something, there's going to
Hmm.
be 110,000 varying ideas or interpretations. So I think for us, it's the best thing I can do is to take them comprehensively through the story, set the scenes for them.
Is there any actors or actresses that you might favor to star in a version of your book?
Yes, I have some vaguely. There's some humorous casting suggestions. I
Oh,
don't.
tell us.
Uh, yeah, I'll be polite. Someone said Tom Gleeson wouldn't be bad as son.
Oh, yes. Well, maybe
Um,
just the resemblance, nothing
yeah,
else.
we don't want, for example, Meryl Streep as Lindy Chamberlain. Not
Hmm.
terrible accent she did.
Oh, really? You didn't like it?
Oh, the dingo's got my boy. I thought, she had this sort of strange trans-Tasman US hybrid accent, which is grated. It'll require a really good cast, and what it requires, I suppose, most is a bloody good script writer to capture this extraordinary story.
Mm.
To go back to it, one of the early interviews in Leon Gather with a local lady, and she was telling me, "You need to understand, lad, that Erin is not from around here. She's not one of us."
Mm.
And just one curious, weird thing that always struck me about Erin is that whenever they bought a house, most of them were actually in a quite remote location in a suburb. They always had space around them.
Hmm.
And she's terribly introverted by the sound of things, except online. Again, quite remote. So it's very much you and the family. So no,
Mm.
just when you walk around these things, these little odd things that just strike you. Does that mean something, or am I just imagining it?
Well, it's been fascinating chatting to you, Duncan. Thank you so much for coming on So Many Receipts for our deep dive true crime series.
Thank you very much. Lovely to chat.
And Recipe for Murder by Duncan McNab is out now through Hachette, Australia.